show you a picture of a cartoon intersection. You can tell it's an intersection, and on one side of the intersection, it's a four-way stop. You can see it's a little police car, you can see it's a little fire truck, you can see it's a little ambulance, and you can tell that's a post office worker, a postal car. And it just says, shows you a picture, says which one has the right of way. I had no idea, and I guessed right. Because I was in the ambulance, and I go, okay, the guy to my right, you know, it's like the old school, you know, boys, so I was like, person to my right, that's the right way. And I said, if everybody obeys that, then everybody's gonna go at the same time, because the person is right, the person is right, blah, blah, blah. So I just go, hey, the person on my right, I'm the ambulance. End up getting it right because it's a post office, it's a federal worker, they get the right of way. I think everybody's good with the school zone stuff. I haven't heard them ask it in a long time. But if you have a bus stopped, offloading kids, got the stop sign out.
Stop.
Two ways you can pass it. One is if the bus driver signals you to come around. Second one, and this is you with lights and sirens, if PD escorts you around. This is like, do you know why there's so much driving stuff on there? This is actually a good question. This is a current national registry question. What federal agency is over paramedicine?
The Department of Transportation.
The DOT. You know why we're under the DOT?
Because we follow their rules.
So what happened was in 1966, if they ask you anything about this White Paper Act, we were, basically they used to come up with, what's the ones that carry dead people?
Coroner.
No, the cars.
Hearse.
Hearse. They would come up on wrecks, you know, they had no seat belts and shit back then. People were dying, a lot of wrecks on the highway. And they come up with the coroners and they come up with a hearse, scoop you up and take you to the hospital. No medical treatment. If you live, you live. And they just needed a vehicle that could carry somebody, right? That was like essentially the first vehicle of ambulance, all right, in the U.S. Not on the, because they will say Napoleon invented EMS, because he didn't start losing soldiers, so he's like, hey, we can treat them, then we get their ass back out there, like, hey, you have a broken arm, we'll stitch you up, hey, shoot the gun with the right hand now, you know, versus left hand. Anyhow, so they wrote this big paper, and that stimulated, hey, we need ambulances. We need a way to prevent this. And that started the idea of ambulances to respond to scene and provide medical care. Where you started seeing the first EMTs and paramedics, kind of in the 70s, early 70s, late 60s, and that's where you got the development of EMS started, was that paper. Well, they needed a federal agency to put it under. You'd think it'd go under Department of Health and Human Services. No. It goes under the Department of Transportation, because the problem was people were dying in NBCs on the highways. Alright? So it became the National Highway Traffic Safety Act or something, NHSTA. If you look under, like whenever I look for the blueprint for your book, like the table of contents, like what the publishing companies use, you know, like they call it the EMS standards, and it just gives me a broad overview so I can stimulate what I need to teach on and stuff like that. I always kind of look to that and go, okay, here are the EMS standards from 2021. That was the last copy. And it's pretty much the outline for your books. But all that is fine. I go to ems.gov, and it's under the DOT's website and the NHSTA. So if they ever ask who's over you, it's the DOT. But it stemmed from people dying in wrecks on the highway. And that became the National Highway Traffic Safety Act, in like 1966. They'll call it the White Paper, but it's like the origin of our business. Alright, if they ask you about the NREMT, so who licenses people to practice medicine? Alright, when you get done with this test, and you get your National Registry Paramedic, are you licensed to practice medicine in the state of Texas? You have to apply for your license with DSHS, which is Department of Safety, Health Services, something like that.
I think the answer is you meet the minimum competencies.
We use NREMT as what Texas use it for is, we use them for their test, for a certification test. So National Registry is for certification. State is for licensing. Like if I go to Oklahoma, I have to get an Oklahoma paramedic license if I'm gonna practice medicine there. People that are flight medics, like on the border, they usually have to carry licenses in both states, wherever you're going to and stuff like that. If I were to go wildland and be a true, like, not just Texas, but be a true, what we call a line medic, everything like that, every time I go to a different state, I have to essentially go through like some kind of small
Like
reciprocity process. It's a temporary. Like when I went to California, we all had to give them our, license numbers, and we got temporary reciprocity in case we had to practice medicine inside the state of California. So states control licensing, National Registry does certification. Certification and license are two different processes. You have to get certified to get licensed. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Alright.
I know you can't license in every state though.
You cannot.
You have, there's like a limit, it's like a limit of like 25.
Well, different states have hold different standards too.
Right, but no, I'm talking about the maximum that you can
Oh.
certify in every
Yeah.
state. You can
Like
do like
doctors can
only
be
25.
certified in more than one state.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to do, so usually there's no reason to do so many. And if there's like, it's gonna be temporary stuff and you're moving around, they will do the temporary route.
Yeah.
But they have to vet you before you, like, they had to go through that list one by one and vet 6 different strike teams. So essentially, what's 6 times 22? 130, 132?
Yeah.
They had to vet 132 Texans that were coming into California. And make sure that we all had current and all they did is just make sure that we are currently licensed in our state.
Is that for like your the Attack Force One?
We were just strike teams going out there, but we were not, we were, like, we were just a bunch of strike teams, not essentially a task force. But that'll come up here in a second. So National Registry certifying, alright, and then, okay, let's get to the big stuff. Incident management. There could be about 8 different questions that come from this little chart.
I noticed I had a lot of questions about CPAP.
Like what?
This was from back in January 6th. I don't remember 100%, but because I texted one of the guys at my department what I seen a lot of, and I said there's probably about 20 CPAP questions.
But you don't remember?
Not 100%. Probably like indications.
Alright, so where they'll try to get you an indication and contraindicate, what would be the biggest contraindication for CPAP?
Alter mental.
No, not breathing.
Alter mental. Oh.
Cause it's not a ventilation device, it's an oxygenation device. That's where they try to get you. So if they are apneic or a CPR, you know, if I said CPR, it'd be automatic. You wouldn't think you even use a CPAP. But when you say apneic, it kind of just hides in there. You're not able to pay attention to it. So the big deal would be like current nausea and vomiting, because you don't want to strap a mask to them, all that. Alter mental status, and I told you if they're unresponsive, what do you need to do for them? Bag them. Alright. But the big one is the apneic. They'll try to just kind of slide that in there.
They give you like a bunch of like, be like this patient's got, let's just say asthma, which, and then they give you some vitals, and then they'd be like, which device would you go to?
Alright,
For
so
these symptoms.
what did I tell you the 2 ways to tell somebody goes into respiratory failure? Mental status and
Rate of breathing?
no, blood pressure drop. So blood pressure drop, if they are, they're trying to get you to go, hey, they're in respiratory failure, respiratory distress. If alter mental status or BP drop, like that, So if they give you a BP and they're having a respiratory issue and they're hypotensive, they're in respiratory failure, don't use a CPAP. You know what I mean? Especially don't use a CPAP in severe bronchoconstricted. Remember we went over that? You're just gonna make them worse, like the air trapping. You need to do, now BiPAP would be okay. BiPAP or bagging. But if they're altered or unresponsive, go bagging. Alright, so this is essentially NIM. These are easy questions, but I will say if you're a person that hasn't gone through fire academy yet, this may be a little more foreign to you, so you might need to concentrate on it a little bit more. Alright, so this is, as this gets built out, this is like your bigger incidents. You know, this could be an explosion, MCI, this could be a hurricane. This chart just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Feel like, you know, a regular wreck, you know, you may only have, you know, two facets of this. You may have IC, you may have safety, and you may have ops, which is the boots on the ground. So one of the questions is you respond to scene, and this is how they'll trick you. You respond to scene of an MCI. You're on an ambulance, you respond to scene MCI, and they say, where do you go first? And A is gonna say ambulance staging, and you're like, I'm an ambulance, I go to ambulance staging. Anytime we check on scene first, who do we check in with? The incident commander, always. Now, that's second nature if you're fire department, because we show up on a wreck, like, and we say, but we show up on command, and command doesn't have to be face to face. It can be over the radio, and be like, hey command, like truck 3's on scene, where do you need us? And they will give you your assignment. So always command first to get your assignment. Never just go straight to ambulance staging. But that seems very tempting for a lot of new students. Just remember, we go to incident command, that gives us our assignment. Alright, now, taking command. Let's say me and you ride an ambulance. You're still an EMT, I'm a paramedic. I got 25 years in, you got 3 or 4 years in. Alright? And I'm a captain, and you're a basic, or a firefighter, or whatever. So, give me 2 reasons. Give me actually 3 reasons why I would take command over her. Higher rank. Experience.
And you
Or seniority, same thing. Experience, seniority.
and you have higher on the
Higher level of care.
Yep.
There you go. That's something they might ask. Alright? And they ask who takes command, like, versus the EMT or paramedic. Say the EMT's been an EMT for 20 years, and the paramedic's been a paramedic for 5 years. Them, higher level of care, essentially is like an outranking. And that trumps it, and they would be the one taking command.
So someone of a lower ranking is kind of refusing to give up, or like lower level of care, lower rank is refusing to give up the command.
Are you thinking fire department?
Yeah.
So put yourself in a private ambulance scenario.
That's where it was.
Don't think, because we have battalion chiefs that are still EMTs.
Even worse.
Yeah.
What if your partner
But
doesn't
they are,
want
essentially, they're, in your command structure, in your system, they're always gonna outrank. It's gonna be a rank deal.
What if your
But
paramedic partner doesn't want to do it?
You play the what if game to death.
Mine doesn't want to do it ever.
Christus out there in East Texas, they allow
So
their
I do it
EMTs.
all the time.
They actually want their EMTs to take command. So
Because the paramedics are more useful on the ground.
Correct.
That's your uniform. It makes sense, but on this test, it'll be the paramedic.
Yeah.
Alright. So you check in with command, that's taking command. This is your command staff. Your PIO, your liaison, and your safety. Alright? I always put it in this order because I think of it as please. Because every time you go to command, it's like, hey, can we please do this? You know, you talk real polite. You don't go in there barking orders. All right. So how they'll frame this question, they'll say, they'll give you one of these in the general staff and three of these, and they'll say which one is not part of the command staff. So you just go through your PIO liaison safety and say they give you planning, and you go, okay, planning is not part of the command staff. What you got?
Well, what's PIO again?
Alright,
Public
so
Inst-
now we'll go through the job descriptions. Just a quick overview. PIO, Public Information Officer. Their job is disseminate information to the public that is needed. They don't need to know all what's going on in the command staff. They don't need to know major command decisions. What they need to know is what's important to them. So, I'll give you the chemical plant that used to be next door. 2010, thing blew up. It was in CNN and national news, all the other big stuff. Waxahachie was on the spotlight. All right. The PIO is in charge of telling everybody evac routes, figuring out what roads are shut down, what access roads and stuff like that, to let people know, hey, don't go down 35. We have 35 northbound and southbound shut down. Hey, we got 287, because we're right here at the major intersection of two major highways. So, and another thing, we emptied out nursing homes and schools right here. Parents want to know what do you think the parents are going to do? They're calling 911 steadily, flooding. Where's my kid? Where's my kid going? So they put this information out there to keep what information that public needs to know, and it keeps them from flooding the 911 banks. Because they need to know, because do you know what happens whenever you get when a system 911 dispatch system gets overloaded?
Shuts down.
Falls away.
The overload goes to a different system. So the overload goes to, like, for McKinney. If McKinney is getting flooded with calls, we're having a major incident. Or I'll give you an example, the Allen shooting. The Allen shooting. Dallas, McKinney, Frisco, and Plano, their dispatch were handling Allen calls. Because it pushes off to the closest next system. So you might say, hey, my dad's having a heart attack in Allen, and they're like, Plano dispatch can help you. Why? I didn't call Plano. It's like, we're handling the overflow for Allen because they have a shooting going on. You know what I mean? So, yeah. West would be another big one. Alright? So, but the PIO is supposed to get information out to the public that, where's I'm not a cop, but they use this reunification center. Where are you going to pick up your kids at? Where did we send your grandma from the nursing home? And stuff like that. Your liaison is your person that everybody says they liaise. Let's say this is the command center. And let's say you're the incident commander. And we have that chemical explosion. We have representatives from the EAP. We have we have county police representatives. We have Waxahachie police representatives. We have federal representatives, Red Cross. We have all these different representatives in there. My job as liaison is to figure out what their objectives are and make sure they align with your objective, because you're the command. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this is what PD is doing for the reunification centers, stuff like that. I keep him in touch and I make sure it's in line with what he wants. And if it's not, then I go back over here and say, hey, we can't do this. He wants you to do it this way. That's all my job is. I'm a go-between. But I am responsible to him. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you got the president and you got the chief of staff and all that. It's kind of the same deal. Sorry, I've been watching a lot of West Wing lately. Alright, safety. Safety is responsible for the overall safety of the scene. They'll ask you a question about safety. They say, what power do they hold equal to command? Basically saying, like, I'm the safety officer in McKinney on C shift. What can I do what power, if we're on a fire, if we're on a major incident, all that, basically, what command can I give that is equal to command that I don't have to go through him for?
You can shut down any event.
I can shut down the event at any time if it becomes unsafe. I don't have to go through and say, hey, I think we need to do it. And I was like, let's just say we're working a structure fire, and we get these all the time during storms or lightning strikes. And let's say there's a reported funnel cloud on, let's say we're at Eldorado and Alma working a structure fire, and there's a reported funnel cloud coming down at Eldorado and Custer coming this way. And I'm like, hey, evac, we're covering, going to cover, get in your vehicles, cover, duck and cover, do something like that, impending, approaching weather or something like that. I can make that call without him. Does that make sense? Or if something is unsafe for us to be around outside, like I'll give you an example. We had one of the biggest hailstorms in McKinney. It was dropping shit like this. What do you think happened right during the middle of it? Structure fire coming out. Hey, we broke so many glasses, like it felt like it was about to come through our roof, and all this other bad stuff. And so they check out. They said, and he's essentially acting like a safety officer. He said, two-story residential, nothing showing. Everybody stay in the vehicle. We'll wait till the hail stops before we get out and do a size up, before we do a 360 or anything like that. But right now everything looks safe, but it's gonna put everybody in danger to get out of their vehicles. It's just gonna have to wait. That's a safety decision. But I don't have to, if I make a safety decision, I don't have to shut down operations. I don't have to go through him. Does that make sense? Alright. So, your general staff, and this is expandable. Alright? And you're gonna learn something about this one. Span of control. What is span of control?
How many people you can manage without it getting too much?
Yep. How many people you can effectively manage? This is your range.
3 to 7.
5 is your optimal. To me, 5 is your average or your median. But I always think of it like this. I go, hey, there's 3 people up here. There's 5 people down here. So that at least gives me 2 of my numbers. But 3 to 7 is your range, and 5 is your optimal. So we get down here to your general staff. This is big event stuff. So finance. When they say finance, what does that mean?
Where money's going.
Say again?
So where the money's going to?
It's not the money going to.
It's
The loss.
getting like resources.
It's reimbursement. So, kind of like that, but think about it like this. Big instance. So every disaster starts local, ends local. It expands up and then contracts back down. So think of a hurricane, all right? So, or think of a tornado. Once they get there's always a quick push to get so for us in the county, you got an emergency management office, but essentially you have a county judge. Your county judge has to push the governor to get a state disaster declaration. They base it on the estimated loss, money loss. And they go, okay, it's met that criteria. Now, what happens whenever you get when you get the disaster declaration is, that opens you up to the state of Texas for resources. Like, we can't call in El Paso has a kick-ass task force team. We cannot call them into Waxahachie. Now, we can call local resources, but we're not gonna get East Texas, West Texas, South Texas, Central Texas resources until we get that disaster declaration by the governor. That opens up the state pocketbooks, which means the state's covering the bill for those. Because there's going to be a high property damage or high estimated loss. Now, if it goes higher than that in the loss column, the governor has to push Trump to do what? Get a national disaster declaration. Once you do that, we call it you're opening up the FEMA tax book, or the FEMA pocketbooks, I don't know. You're opening up the pockets for FEMA. That means you get national resources. So like a hurricane is a great example of that, because you get a quick estimate, based off the estimate, you get all the state resources, so you get state ambulance strike team, task force 1, task force 2, all these resources heading down to the coast. Usually they gaggle in San Antonio and then they go to the coast. As soon as we hit that property loss and that loss for national, then I'm telling you, they just cleared it on a Thursday, and we already had 250 ambulances in our lot, cause we were doing the ambulance staging management, so we were all around, we call it NRG, where the old,
Down in Houston?
yeah, the stadium where the Texans play. So think about like your big parking lot outside Texas Stadium. We had a fourth of that parking lot dedicated to ambulance resources, buses, all this stuff to clear out nursing homes and go set up stuff. Another part was military, another part, we also had task force teams. As soon as it went national, the next day we had 500 ambulances show up.
Damn.
They call it the AMR contract. Essentially, it's the FEMA contract. But we got stuff from big ambulance companies in Arkansas, and but AMR was the big one. So AMR has pockets of ambulances throughout Texas and on coastal lines to deploy. Let's just say in San Angelo, they have 100 ambulances. He gives them a call and said, "Hey, they just went federal. He's, I need you to have 100 ambulances ready to go." And they will send paramedics from Oregon to New York. They send them down there, they fly into San Angelo,